When I first started getting into jazz, my two biggest heroes were Ron Carter and Paul Chambers. And of course, I love Ray Brown, I love Buster Williams, I love Sam Jones, Oscar Pettiford, Charles Mingus, Jimmy Garrison. But Paul Chambers and Ron were like my two main guys. I never saw a lot of video of Paul Chambers. I saw a lot of pictures of Paul Chambers and I heard the records, but Ron Carter, I got to see him a lot. And he was on thousands of records, you know, so it's impossible to not hear him often if you're a jazz fan. And so Ron became my biggest hero throughout high school, and I tried to do everything like him. You know, I studied verbatim many notes on records that I heard him play on. I went out and tried to get the black labella strings like he did, and I stood in the mirror and tried to you have the same posture as him, and all of his mannerisms. I tried very hard to copy in the hopes that I would sound and feel just like Ron Carter, and it never worked. And I just couldn't figure out, I'm doing everything that Ron Carter's doing. I got the same strings, I'm standing the same way, I'm playing the same notes, and just not feeling like Ron Carter. Man, this is frustrating. But that's what happens when you're 16. You know, you just don't know any better. So I moved to New York, and I'm playing with people like Bobby Watson and Roy Hargrove, and I'm starting to break out of this be Ron Carter thing just because I had to. Now it's time to concentrate on the gig. I started working a lot with Benny Green. Benny Green and I were part of Freddie Hubbard's rhythm section. So playing with Benny, he listened to Oscar Peterson all day and all night. He was in the Oscar Peterson like I was in the James Brown. And so I got to really familiarize myself with Ray Brown on a daily basis. And Ray started to slowly take over as my #1 favorite bass player. But when I saw him live, that's when my life changed forever, because there's always one of these eureka moments, especially when you're that age. And when I saw Ray Brown play live, it was, that's how it's supposed to be done. Now I get it. And my life has never been the same since. You know, what was so wonderful about it was, from where I was sitting, Ray Brown's bass was probably no more than 8 or 9 feet away. And it was at the Blue Note in New York. And he had a little tiny amplifier. He had like a little tiny polytone amplifier, which was on, but you barely heard it. So when I felt all of that sound coming from the instrument, and then all of this groove, all of this feel, and Ray Brown was moving around, you know, he was like looking around and telling everybody, you know, giving everybody instructions, you know, and he just really seemed to be enjoying himself. And it was funky, you know, the same kind of propulsion that I felt in funk, I felt for Ray Brown that night. It wasn't funk, it wasn't soul, it wasn't R&B, but it felt the same way, you know? And that's when I started to feel like, you know, all of these names, you know, swing, bebop, soul, funk, whatever it is, doesn't really mean that much. It's just all about what hits you right here, you know? Because, you know, you can hear some Latin musicians and that groove hits you hard, and you get the same kind of feeling, like, wow, I want to get up and move. So that's what Ray Brown did to me that night. I got to know him, and he got to be very much like my second dad, and there's not a day I don't think about Ray Brown.